Great.
It's loading.
Great.
Oh, live on YouTube. That's a new one.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it means we're online.
We're
So,
online.
good evening, Inbal.
Bonjour. Good evening.
Bonjour. Welcome to the rendezvous de l'impro.
Huh?
Welcome to the rendezvous.
Rendezvous de l'impro.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
the name.
Yeah. Very glad to have you here. Hello also to all the members of the group of the Liber Ligue d'Impro de Berlin who are with us for this 40 minutes of rendezvous with you. We'll do 20 minutes, just the two of us, with the whole world listening to us, of course, on YouTube.
Masses.
Masses.
Yes.
And then we'll have 20 minutes questions of the players who'd like
Wonderful.
to know stuff. So I'll ask you. Inbal, you're an international artist. Yes. And you play all over the world, more or less.
When there was a world, I used to play all over the world. Yes. Now there's just this.
No, it will open again.
I hope.
Don't tell me this, because I'm depressed enough. But yeah. But you had to start somewhere. I think. How did improv come to you, or how did you come to improv?
In Tel Aviv in 2000 or 2001. So right after I finished my acting studies in Jerusalem, I was there for 3 years. Then I moved to Tel Aviv. And then there was an improv group. Actually, it was the only one back then in Israel. And they were just looking for a fifth person, preferably a woman, because they had an actress, she had to leave. So I auditioned, and that's it. It just started there.
And it was, what kind of improv was it? What appealed to you?
What appealed to me?
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it from day one. Like I think it was like, oh, this is a good thing for me to do. In the beginning, just the craziness of it. And I remember we used to do like short forms, and we would finish a whole bottle of vodka and some cans of Red Bull. We would go up on stage like hammered, and we would do like short forms. Super funny, super great. But then when we started to experiment with long form, a little bit, or medium form, like 20 minutes, because we all came from acting. So in a way, we kind of wanted to, the games were fun and entertaining, but we kind of wanted it to go like, okay, how can we also explore improv as a theater piece? And I think the more long form you start doing, the less I could drink before a show, because your short-term memory is so fucked up. You just, what did I name this guy? What was he? Who was I? Where were we? What did we talk about? So you kind of I needed to be a little bit more sober for the long form. So now I'm not even drinking anything. After, however.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the players who saw you on stage described you more or less also as crazy, but my mom, who briefly met you, said you seem to be a very nice lady. And and I wanted to know, my question would be, are you insane? And do you need to be insane to do improv?
Who said that French people are indirect? Or maybe it's because you live in Germany for too long.
Yeah.
But so first of all, who said you can't be crazy and a nice person?
Of course.
Am I insane? No. I don't think so. I mean, I don't, no.
Do you want me to be more precise in my question? Or?
No, I think that, be more specific.
Okay. No. No, you were getting somewhere.
No, I don't know, but it's interesting what you're trying to follow. I'd like to hear more. So please.
How many people do you have to be to improvise?
Yeah, a lot.
For example,
I have to be a lot, but then again, I am a lot. I mean, back in the days, I wrote a one-woman play that was called The Woman I Could Have Been. And the idea of it, it was when I was in the beginning of my 30s, it was about a woman who reaches 30 and she realized that she doesn't know who she is because she always hears the voices of the women in her family. So it was her grandmother, her mother, her twin sister, her aunt. Whenever she was trying to reach a decision, those ladies would start to debate in her mind and create a catastrophe, and she couldn't make a decision, be like completely exhausted. And I think for me, and also I think for a lot of women that I know, a lot of times there's like a lot of voices, and then you could be a lot of people, and a lot of times it can be confusing. But in other situations, such as improvisation, it can be a bliss because, yeah, you could just be as many as you can. The idea is that how many opinions can you hold, and how can you contradict different opinions that you have and look at them from a completely different perspective and believe it too, you know? And does it mean that you don't, and who are you in the end of the day? Who is you? What do you believe in or follow? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So, but I don't think it's insaneness. No.
Yeah. Because you have you write some articles now and then for also on the Guerrillas website where you teach, and one of them was about the fact that we are the content.
Yeah.
And you taught workshops on this idea. What was behind it? Because of course, when you go on stage, you think, okay, I want to play that, and I want to play this. I want to play this very bad person. I want to play this hero. I want to play a dragon. So does it mean we are all that, or?
I think that's the basic point, that I'll take it a little bit backward for a second, a step before, because a lot of times that I see my students when they have to play a cop, a police woman or a man, and let's say a vicious, a cruel police woman, okay? So a lot of times I saw that there would be like this police woman kind of archetype that they would try to be, but this thing has got nothing to do with them. And so when they try to be that person, it looks not very authentic, it's not very interesting, it's not entertaining. And so how can I play everything? But when I personalize it, when I am the point of beginning, it's not that the character is out there and I need to tap in. It's like, what would it mean to me, and what would be the most joyful and the most fun for me to play it in the most believable way, which will be beneficial for the scene. If I just go crazy, maybe the scene needs it, but at other times, maybe, you know, it's not about how crazy I could be.
So it's an act of balance also between how free you can be to play such characters and a story you have to follow or a scene.
Yeah, I think this is one of the biggest challenges. This is why I was like online now teaching for almost 2 months. I was teaching extreme characters, because this is, I think, a very interesting point. How can we be something that is a little bit more amplified, something that is very different from us as a character, but in a very personal way? So then you have the, how do I do it consistently and not drop it? And the second thing would be, how would I keep the scene going while playing that character? And I have to say that I myself fail many times when I'm like following the character, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm all over the place, and I'm like, hang on. Did the scene benefit from this choice that I made? So I think it's this balance, as you said.
You follow. I like the fact that you wrote also that you go through phases in improv. Yeah. You have phases where you say, "Oh, I found that. That's great." Which is, I think it's a classic for many of us. Think, "Oh yeah, I got it," and finding something else, and "Oh, I got it now," and we never got it, but we do make choices and or discover things. And you play formats and teach workshops about politics, which is which is quite unusual. How did you come to do that? What was the idea behind it?
I think this came because I was for many years writing a lot of sketch comedies in Israel, And a lot of times they would be very political or very social or very cultural. They would try to tackle something in the Israeli society or politics or whatever. And so this playground of using current events or stuff like that is kind of something that I know. And I also think that for me personally, if I go up on stage, I would like to comment about those things or bring the outside world into the stage. I don't like so much to do this sterile improvisation where it's like, oh, let's play a doctor and a patient, but let's be like a very generic doctor and patients that are not living in a specific place and not dealing with things like the situation of the health system, for example. Because then why? If we're already on stage, are we making are we showing something? Are we making the audience think or laugh or cry, you know? So I think the basic thing is like not to try to educate people, not to try to go like, fascism is bad, but play a scene which shows how fascism suck balls, you know, but like without saying it, you know what I mean?
Mm. And how is it for you to play it also in a different context? Because we are many in our group are French and playing here, and a different culture already. You come from Israel, play in Berlin a lot, and then also elsewhere in Europe. So it's the context, yeah, is different every time.
Yeah,
but the planets. It's the same, but is it a problem for this political thing?
No, I think not, because I think of course there's always the local level of stuff, the local level where stuff is happening, and maybe you could like know a little bit about it by talking to people and maybe mention it in a way. But I think that the same thing worry all of us everywhere, you know, like the social economical stuff or racism or immigration or justice, stuff like that. These are stuff that we're all corruption, you know, these are things that everybody can tap into. So I heard a funny story. I will tell you that for a second. It's a Turkish poet. I heard a talk with her, and she said that she usually comes to a lecture in human rights conventions, right? And she said that a few years ago, she would meet other people from other third world countries, like, I don't know, Iran or whatever, and they go like, hey, how's it going? And they would go like, you know. And she said that was 10 years ago. And nowadays, it doesn't matter who she meets. It could be the American, the British, the, you know, the French. And they're just like, how's it going? And everybody was like, you know. So I think right now, and this Corona shit is also showing it even better, we're all in the same boat. We're all facing the same thing, like our basic freedom versus, yeah, the people who lead us and what are they like. So.
And how do you bring that back to scenes, sort of saying what you begin to say also, not saying fascism is bad, or only playing a president and saying, okay, that's an awful person. How do you make it?
So first of all, play that president. Dare to play that president. Dare to play that racist president, for example, or that vicious president in a believable way. So not like a caricature of, oh, I'm going to be a bad president now and everybody's going to see how hard I don't know. But like be, and to try to tap into their own psychology or why they do the things they do and what they care or don't care. And then try to play the person, protagonist to them, what's up with them, right? And I think that through the situation, you make the people think, but it's not through taking a stand to here or here. I'm not saying that it's easy. It's very lucid because also it's very new for me and for my partner, Zaki Zikani. But we found that we could go to the metaphor. We can talk about, we don't want aliens here because aliens smell weird. And so if you call it aliens and not immigrants, you kind of go into a metaphor level, and then you could say much more. You could do the conflict in the background. So we could play two people who are ready to leave their house and getting very, you know, like, and then you realize that the house is going to be bombed and they're not going to the movie. So that would be conflict in the background. And you can do the direct. And I teach people a lot of time to play the racist, to play the misogynist, to play the corrupted in a very believable way, because while playing a scene like that, you are not mocking the minority or whatever. You're not mocking the weak person. You're mocking the people who mock the weak. You know what I mean? If you and I are going to play a couple of rednecks, for example, and we're going to talk about Jews, right? And when we don't want Jews in our societies, whatever, no. We're not criticizing Jews. We're criticizing people who think that way. You know what I mean? But it has to be believable, because the moment you do a caricature of these characters, it's not as.
And you have to learn. You have to learn to play it without judging it. Is that even possible, or?
In a way. You know, you could say terrible sentences like, why did it, so for example, I'm just thinking about a sentence. Why do the Jews have all the money in the world, right? I wish they did, because I wish I knew that we have all the money in the world. But you could say, like, why did the Jews have all the money in the world? And like, that person really believes that she's a victim. She's a real victim by the Jews. And the more you play it in a believable way, the irony then, the audience goes like, what? Right? So my job is to really play that character. But it's lucid. It's risky. It's risky.
Do you get the impression it can affect the audience? It affects the audience. Maybe you did the experience also that people told you after the show that scene. I remember.
Yes. There were scenes that especially in the shows with Zaki, there were scenes that we were like shaking where we finished it.
Can you specify maybe who's his improviser is?
No,
not text. Yeah.
No, I can't.
Kind of.
Well, he's an Arab improviser named Zaki Zikani, but we cannot really tell a lot about him because he comes from an Arab country who's not very good friends with Israel. And so for him, it could be a prison. It could be a really big problem. He could go to jail for doing a show with me, like collaborating with the enemy. So the show is called Playing with the Enemy.
And that was, I guess, one of the reasons you did the show also. It's a way of turning things.
Yeah. And I think, again, we're not always tapping into that specific thing where we're just talking about. Sometimes shows are more comedic, sometimes they're darker. But when it works, I think for me, it's the most shaking, one of the most shaking experiences of improvisation and what you can actually do with it and still keep it a comedy. That's the interesting thing. It's still, the show overall would still be a comedy, a dark comedy, but a comedy.
I heard you say, well, I think you could have said fuck structure before going on a show, but I don't think you would apply it to everything. But what do you need to go on stage? What do you need to know before you go on stage and playing with improvisers? Because you do a lot of different formats. You play with a lot of different improvisers. What do you need to be sure of before going on stage?
I think the format, basically, and the format could be something very lucid, very loose.
Loose?
You know, it doesn't have to, you don't have to, of course, if you do a film noir, for example, then you want to kind of have more structure than if you're just going to do, okay, let's just short scenes around. So this would be good to know.
But you really have a preference for topics more than for formats now, I mean, or is it mixed, depending on what you encounter?
Yeah, I guess it's not like, I really like, because I do it with a lot of different partners, then it depends what they bring to the table and what I bring to the table, and then what we can cook together. So it's kind of like, I think each person has a different influence. Also, if you have a lot of faces, like we talked about in the beginning, then different people will take different personalities out of you. And that's cool too, because then you can also be flexible towards them. And that's a lot of fun too. Yeah.
One last thing before we open the round to everyone who wants to ask questions from the Libère to the world. You also have it was Les Femmes or La Femme or Chercher la Femme. I don't know exactly. I don't remember exactly the name what it was, but it had something to do with Bechdel test and the fact that you did an all women workshop. What brought you to that? What was your motivation?
Yeah, it was when I realized, because in the beginning, like years ago, I was like, we don't need women's workshops. Why? I mean, why do we need workshop only for women? And then, but the more time passed, I realized that women improvisers, some of them will dare to explore more comfortably places if they would just be with women. They would dare maybe to fail more, or maybe make more mistakes, or explore from different perspectives. So I thought, okay, let's just make this free, comfortable zone. And the other thing was that I felt that I sometimes, when I start to play a character, I don't know if I'm a man or a woman on stage, and I'm not making this decision. And it would usually be because that person is not a typical archetype of woman. So whenever I don't play a type of archetype, I myself don't know if I'm a man or a woman. And I was like, why? And I understand why. I grew up in a very conservative society, a Middle Eastern society, a Jewish society. Like, I understand why I would be tangled around my head with like, what is female, what is not female on stage. But I kind of like wanted to be, and then I talked to Lisa Roland from Bats, who has the Bechtel test, which is a great format that I did with her. And this is like, just play people, and those people happen to be women. But it's not about their I mean, it's okay if one storyline is about her boyfriend or her husband or a child that she has, but it's not about the family, and it's not about the husband, and it's not about love, and it's not about sex. It's about, or it is about sex, but not connected to this one. It's about her being a worker or a plumber or an author, you know, and the life. And this is so crazy how less of it we have. Just characters of women who are not associated with a man. You know, the Bechtel test. Are they talking about a man? Do they have names? No, just life. So this is why I thought, no, I should do a workshop like that. And it was great. I had a lot of fun. And thanks to Lisa, who gave me the format and allowed me to experiment with it.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for this first round. And we'll make people appear now. That's a magical, that's a magical plot. So you can just all come up with your videos if our director, Quentin, lets them do.
Hello. Yeah. Oh, I know some of you.
Yeah.
Hello. Hello. Bonjour. You can say bonjour whenever, right? It doesn't have to be in the morning.
No. Just say it.
Just say
it. Just say it. That's already great. So anyone, yeah, some of them don't have cameras, so
okay.
But they're still allowed to speak.
Sure.
No. So if anyone wants to, yeah. Lena, maybe.
Yeah. Hi. So following up on what you just discussed with a Bechtel test and such. So if you're not a typical woman on stage, then how do you make it clear you're a woman? I mean, is the only way that is the only thing that makes it clear your name, or how do you do it?
I'm going to say something that's going to sound weird. It depends on your physicality.
Oh.
There's some women, like for me, it's like, it's not clear if I'm a man or a woman, and then somebody will endow me very easily as a guy. But for other women with other physiques, they will have to make a lot of effort, a bigger effort maybe, to give the impression that they're a guy. Because physically, what people will see is a woman. And so if you would want to play the other gender, you would maybe have to go through a little extra mile. You understand?
And is the idea that you try to do that? That maybe, you know, you try to be an interesting woman on stage rather than being an interesting whatever character, maybe a man?
So are you saying, like, if I go up on stage and I'm not playing an archetype of a woman, how do I prevent people from referring to me as a man?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for instance.
okay.
Yeah.
Now I understand. First of all, you can always name yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can always say, people always tell me Jolene, blah, 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 blah. Second of all, and I'm very interested about that, how is it in French? Because in Hebrew, I cannot talk about myself in first person without making a gender decision. So it doesn't matter what name I use. The first sentence, I would be gendering myself. But in French, no, huh? It's like English?
Not in French, no.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, in English too, right? It's a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
So I would say name yourself, talk about yourself, make it clear. If you want to play a man, make it super obvious, whatever that means to you, right? If you want to play a woman, you know. I hope I understood the question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool.
And also, wait, by the way, there's always the question of like, is it necessary to know in the scene if it's a man or a woman? Is it important for the scene if you be a female or male? Or could you just pass genderless? Also, could be. In English, you could play a whole scene without mentioning the gender. Nicht
Nico.
zufrieden.
No, sehr zufrieden. Sehr zufrieden.
Sehr zufrieden. Yeah.
Hi, quick question, because you mentioned a lot of political scenes being on improv. And there's a famous French comedian who said years and years ago, you can laugh about everything, but not with everyone. So my question would be, do you think you can improv everything, but not with everyone?
As a partner or as an audience?
Actually, yeah, good question. I thought first at the audience, but actually, you know, playing with, yeah, it's also with someone, partner. That's good.
Yeah, there's some people who wouldn't go into political, like, especially white men today. I think they're so scared of making mistakes that it would be really hard to maybe drag them to do something, you know. So not with everybody. Then there's a different kind of humor. I personally believe that everything is laughable, more or less. The question is like, what's your motive? Who are you trying to humiliate? If you're trying to humiliate the victim, I might not go with you. But if you're telling a joke that uses the victim, but you're actually criticizing something else, maybe I will be more there. But in terms of the audience, and this is also what we teach in Plain Politics, is you got to know who the audience is, and you got to match somehow the level of expectation. So I think it makes no sense to go in a show of short forms in a bar at 11 p.m. and they think that they come to see an entertaining something, and then you bombard them with like political scenes or whatever, or sad scenes. However, when they come to see Playing with the Enemy, they already have a little bit more expectation about like, okay, this is going to be a little bit different. Maybe I won't laugh the whole time. Maybe it will be a little bit more on the edge. So you got to know your audience and you got to prepare them for that too. But it's always good if you do a show in a bar and then one scene is like, and the audience goes like, what? And then everything's like back to normal. It's also cool. It's like taste them a little bit, you know?
Cheers.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anybody else? Oh, look, I just got a new mask. Oh my God. Oh, wow. Ew. We should wash them. Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, and Sophie.
Yeah, hi. Okay, so I have a question about what you taught. I think I heard you taught a workshop about extreme character. That's what I wrote, right? And so I have two questions about that. What's an extreme character, and how do you know that you're not doing something, that you're not playing something that you've already played, like it's becoming when it's becoming an archetype, but a personal archetype.
I mean, you would know, nobody else would know, right? You would know when you repeat yourself.
Of course, yeah, but I think you want to avoid that kind of archetypes, and that was maybe interesting to know how you do.
But avoid why? Because you sometimes want to have new characters. Is that what you mean? Or
yeah.
Because you want to keep yourself fresh.
Yes.
Yeah. So what would be a good technique for that? I think a lot of times from the outside, when you're watching a scene and you want to join a scene, a good question would be to ask yourself, what does the scene needs? You know? And the answer could be the scene needs a character of a lawyer, but the answer could be the scene needs a little bit faster rhythm, you know, and the answer could be the scene needs to end. It doesn't matter, but what does the scene needs from your opinion, right? And then once you answer that question, it's like you have the what, now you can start playing with the how, you know? So if it needs a lawyer, what kind of lawyer would the scene needs? And then just make like a very fast choice. And if you wanna surprise yourself, make a choice that you wouldn't usually make. So now you know you're a lawyer, but let's say you know you're a lawyer who talks with her elbows. I don't know, whatever, you know, this kind of lawyer. She always does that. And see where it takes you. But I think it's just like to take and it could be also that she's an emotional lawyer, you know. But at the same time, it could be that you just walk into the scene because you know a lawyer is needed, and then you adjust. I think it's fun to make decisions from the outside as to the how, right? But then the challenge would be to be able to fulfill that task that you gave yourself and still keep the scene going. So not to be so invested in that task that you forget about the scene and you don't have enough focus to get the scene going, because the scene needs you, right?
Yeah.
So for example, that just to surprise, and you could do it also in rehearsal, right? Surprise yourself with things and see what comes up. I did it in a demonstration in the extreme character. I was just said, let's just do crazy faces. And then I find this character and I like it. I never played her before. And ever since then, whenever I demonstrate, I just go back to her. And she gave me so much. Great. It is like this, right? Just because you go like, oh, I'll just take my mouth, you know, a little bit down and see what happens. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. But by the way, do you play only extreme characters, or is it always the same big energy? Sorry.
I think as an improviser, this would be my Achilles heel, to play the normal woman, whatever that means. Yeah, that's my biggest challenge, I would say.
I saw you do the secretary at the Finanzamt, and it was quite a normal secretary at the Finanzamt. So
yeah, but I think it's more in the levels of how to restrain myself. I go like, listen, Inbal, the scene needs you neutral now, or it needs you normal now, you know, to do that. This is like in terms of choice, and then to do it. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Question? Lena?
Yeah.
So with these extreme characters, or especially in political scenes, have you ever played a character so vicious that afterwards you thought, "Ooh, wow, maybe I'd rather not done that"?
No, not that I'd rather not done that, but maybe it was like, "Oh, that was dark." But not rather not have done that. No, I don't think so. No. I remember one cursing Zaki really bad on stage because we were playing 2 inmates, and he was tortured in an investigation, and then I was playing his inmate, and his inmate really hated him and told him to be quiet, and I really cursed him. And I remember that I felt like, you know, I felt very bad, very, very bad. But the scene was very effective. And I think that for us to play it and for the audience to watch it, it was very strong. So no, I don't think I was ever sorry for something like that.
Joanna?
Yeah, I have a question about this because you said you have an improv show playing with the enemy and playing in politics and probably more. But the two of them are very strong, probably for you and probably for the audience as well. My question would be, how do you train to do these strong characters, or to take maybe themes or just like political issues that are kind of unspoken or taboo, and how do you train to show them in a way that is effective?
Yeah.
Just the training part.
Yeah. I think so. What you're talking about is that the workshop is called Playing Politics and the show is called Playing with the Enemy. So it's
Okay.
it's a little bit, as I said before to Denis, that when in the workshop, we're trying to look at the direct form of it, in which you would play the villain or the bad person or the racist misogynist in a very believable way in order to criticize those people and not the victims. Okay, so that would be the direct way. You have the conflict in the background, where you could play people who are in very extreme situations, but you're not playing how miserable they are. You just play their lives, ignoring it, but knowing that the conflict is in the background. And you have the metaphor level of it, which is very, so these would be roughly. You can start experimenting more and going do you guys see me? Because my internet connection is unstable. Oh, okay.
Just, yeah.
And in terms of where do we get the topic from? I mean, we watch news, we see what's going on out there, and I think it bothers a lot of us. So, yeah, I mean, why not use it as a content? Why not use it for comedy? Why not use it to say stuff about our society? And you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think
think or feel.
I think it's amazing. It's amazing what you do, and it's yeah. I'm really looking forward to see it one day.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Last question, maybe Christina. Yeah. Yeah, we need your mic.
Does it ever happen to you that you have problems with the audience, with your quite explosive content? I mean, do you play before in front of audiences that are difficult? Because I work in an initiative. They are quite cool people, but if we go too much into philosophy or too much into politics, then it's sometimes a bit difficult. And I guess that with your shows, it's not so easy peasy.
I mean, as I said before, when we do these kinds of show, usually we establish the expectations. So if they come to see a political show, they know it's going to be this kind of content, right? But in an overall show, when something like this comes up, I think as long as you manage to level the comedy and the satire level or the irony level, as long as you can balance that, then people would go further than you think, But I don't know about a situation where the audience was like, oh my God, what the fuck was that? But then maybe they didn't come to tell me. So maybe I fucked up many times, but nobody told me. But I remember once in Amsterdam Festival where I started a scene and I imitated the muezzin. Do you know what the muezzin is? It's the guy who goes like, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And the minute I did it, I could feel 200 Europeans getting sucked back into their... And I was like, fuck this shit, come on. I lived with this my whole life. You can't do that on stage because you feel politically incorrect about it. And the only two people in the audience who left were Arabs. So, you know, what's funny for us is not funny, but I think this was the time when I was like, I could really feel them all going like, it's like, what? It's part of life, what? And also there wasn't like the scene was like mocking Muslim people. No, it was a scene about a friend and an imam, you know, that's it. So yeah, but no, I don't think so. And I hope that it won't happen too, because I don't want to piss people off, you know. I don't want to make people go out at a show going like, oh my God, this woman abused us.
Well, thanks a lot for being with us and not abusing us. I think everyone felt very pleased. I was very thankful for you to come to the Rendezvous de l'Impro.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you very much. Do you want to, because you're actually giving workshops now, so please feel free to share what you're doing right now at this instant.
So I just heard that they're opening another online course on the topic that I'm going to teach, the logic of the e-logic. And this is about how can we play scenes about spaces and people who are not in our reality, but they still have some sort of logical reality. It's just not ours. Because a lot of time, I think when we're playing different places, different characters, like we tend to be like, oh, everything goes. But actually, no, it's a parallel universe. So how do we find the logic in that illogic place? So that's going to be online. And in July, I'm still crossing the fingers. In the 5th and 4th of July, I'm going to teach my solo workshop, which, did you take this one, Dani?
I took this one.
Yeah, so we're going to do another one of the solo workshop in the Boonenrausch.
Great experience.
Yeah, that was fun, isn't it? It's the best. And it doesn't matter if you want to do solo or not. I think it just gives you a lot of good tools to be like independent and confident on stage. Hopefully, if the theaters, if we could do workshops by then that's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for being with us, Inbal. It's been a great pleasure and an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you in real life soon, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With flesh and bones.
We can, do the elbow thing. All right.
Bye, Inbal. Thank you. Ciao, ciao.